Okay, so I decided to leave my hair messy today, and I'm thrilled to be with you today. I had a series of adventures. My computer suddenly told me that my phone, it doesn't support my camera. Hi, Jackie. Good morning. Hi, Sylvie. And and then my lithium batteries have been charging, so they just cut down, so I should be all right, so it shouldn't be so messy, and it shouldn't be so loud. And then I had to find everything to put my phone together to talk to you by phone this morning. Now I'm gonna take a minute to breathe. I'm very, very excited about this call this morning, and I know it's going to end up a video, which I'm really happy about. And Jackie, I want to be able to post it on my MailChimp. I just don't quite know where to start. So this morning I had a dream, and it was more like a visitation. And it was a visitation that was clearly connected to the fact I was going to be doing Facebook Live this morning. And as you know, in the dream state or in the vision state, you are engaged in a manner that is often hard to recreate when you come out of the vision. But it all started with a group of voices in the future, people in the future, asking me to tell you something. That was so beautiful. I'm going to cry. Okay. And it started with something I can't remember right now, but it was showing me an event. Oh, I know what it was. I remember now. I'm in the dream now, or in the visitation. So one of the things that was on the news in the United States is how college students across our country, which is quite large, has formed a body of students that literally are hiring trucks and formed like a coalition to go to farmers to pick up milk and potatoes and vegetables and get them to food banks all over the country. It started in Utah, between Utah and California, and then it spread to Washington and Oregon, and then southern Midwestern states started in on it. The southern Midwestern states started, and then it's pretty much spread all over the country. So in the visitation today, these voices, people from the future, were explaining to me and showing me how what we were doing, though we couldn't see it now, that this is what we were seeding in the future. And probably on this call, at some point, I talked about a dream, I may not have, that I had a series of dreams, which I need to insert here, because it's along the same lines as the vision visitation this morning. But in this dream, I went to this sort of address in some galactic territory where a bunch of galactic beings, some of them were gaseous, some of them were prickly, some of them were, everything looked odd, let me just say it that way. But somehow I've been invited to the party. And what I was embarrassed about is these beings had been called to come back to the earth, to come back to the, not so much back to human beings, but back to the what we call the ethers, or the energy fields of the earth, because they could again, because something was no longer barring them from participating in, I don't know if you know this, but this planet is made up of ethers. It's etheric. This is not woo-woo. This is not metaphysics. We are made up of ethers. Do you know that oxygen and hydrogen and nitrogen and all that's ethers? So this planet's made up of ethers. So I was in reality for many, many times, 5 or 6 times, this dream, i.e. dream walk, would happen to me. And in every time, everybody was trying to figure out how to get into this multi-ether planet without harming each other, harm to none. And at one level, the dream visitation was comical, because the prickly thing was trying to figure out how not to explode the gaseous thing. And then there was this interesting one interacting with me, which I could never in my wildest dreams explain what it was like. But it had the feeling of when, if you've ever seen something move around that has a slicer on it, and you don't want to, you duck so you didn't get sliced, you duck so you didn't get sliced. A little bit like, and somewhat like a sword fight. That's the only way I can kind of describe it. But this being and I were interacting with each other so that I didn't damage it and it didn't damage me. And it was all about a return. It was all about the return of these territories to the earth and preparing to return. But nowhere in their consciousness was the memory of war, or the memory of hardship, or the memory of starvation, or the memory of hurting each other. It was a technical problem, which often many of you have heard me talk about, a technical problem. And I was embarrassed because I couldn't get war or starvation or hurt or harm out of my own head. But I could contrast it between these beings that were far, far evolved from us. And this was just not part, what we're experiencing was not part of their palette. And over these 5 times I had this dream, there is now a constitutional portion of me that doesn't register trauma anymore. I'm talking about trauma in the world, or internal trauma either, but not all of me. It just isn't. Proportionally, it's better. Proportionally, it's more like a ghost effect or a haunting effect of, and I'm still deeply impacted by the news and by. I've done a couple of funerals now for people that couldn't be with their loved ones when they died, and by Zoom. But all in all, the memory bank is in the future. The memory bank of how to line up now, how to be now on behalf of a future rising, is gaining proportionally more territory in my beingness than the circumstances of our times. So this was equational to that. So the first layer of the visitation were these voices, basically enthusiastic and in the future, really wanting to come into here through me, through my dream walk, and to deliver a message. And they were very kind and very enthusiastic and very gentle and very understanding what we were experiencing in the now. And they felt like it was just imperative that we understood that kind of like the effect, or the what's the word I want to say, how it will spread out into the future, how what it's happening now, what the future looks like, that it's not always going to be like now. And so the whole time, which felt like a bit, I was being shown these events in the now, one of which is the students, for those of you that just came back, only they didn't tie me down and hook me to the ground, but they wanted us to realize that this feeling that a lot of us have been having, that it's like the dream I had, or the dream walk I had with the beings that knew it was that they could return to Earth again. Not necessarily humans would see them, but maybe ancient times, those of us that had a sense of alchemy or a sense of magic, maybe we did engage with etheric beings. I don't know. I mean, I know for me, but I don't know for everybody. So the first thing was all the students in college that have gathered together to make sure that the food banks get the food and the milk and the dairy products so that they're not dumped on the ground and destroyed, and have raised money for that. So it showed me how this golden thread of those actions fed out beyond the circumstances of our time. And then, so in my world, Vicky Bass makes rice for my dog. And I live in an RV, and I don't make rice very well. And we found out that Lily only likes the rice that Sammy and Vicky make for her. So every week, Vicky makes rice for my dog. And they showed me that these that we're already in a world, we're already beginning a world that we're seeding into the future. And this is the part, and really honestly, I don't think even if I had done Facebook Live at 5:30 this morning when I woke up, I'm not sure I could have immediately relayed the dream even then. So, but they basically showed me a world where money didn't exist. And it showed me how what we're doing now, that the operating system of the world would be exchange. And then they just laid it out. It was so clear, and I want to try to see if I can get it clear. It just showed if money stopped today, it'd be like these college students that got you, Ann. That it was like these college students that they raise money so that they could pay the farmers and the farm employees to take the trucks to the food banks. But at the same time, if you look underneath it, which I got so clear about, if you look underneath it, if money went away tomorrow, there would be groups of people that would figure out how to make things work, who needed enough food, who needed like doctors in the old days, they were fed by food, and people made clothes for their children, and the shoemakers made shoes, and there wasn't really money in the Old West for a long time, not till the gold rush actually. It was all a method of exchange. So imagine a small town where everybody knew what was needed. Don't we know it's needed? And we know we need food. We know we need shelter. We know we need clothing. We know that we'd like to educate ourselves. We know that we'd like to have fun. So in our country, and I'm sure in all of your all's countries, that in the old West, people didn't have money, so everybody took on something, and they figured out how much was needed for everybody there, and everybody took on their part. And that was this dream. That was this visitation. And it was very similar to the 5 times that I went to another territory, another dimension, till my system could start tracking the future now. And that's the intent of this conversation today, is to track the future now and to activate in this paradigm, in this exact moment of time, to transmit the energy of that dream, that visitation, through my Facebook Live, and so that we can all dwell in it. And I noticed when I was in the other dream that I was contrasting. In other words, I was contrasting myself in a way where I was contrasting how much I paid attention to how much I still tracked war is real, how much I still tracked, and I still do. I mean, that hasn't changed, but I stopped contrasting it. I stopped comparing, because they simply were distinct. One went one way and one went another. So I took on, after those visions that I had of working with these etheric beings, to figure out how to get back in here and be part of the etheric territory of the earth again, to visit and to enjoy and to empower our primary mother here. I got so I could live in both and, which is the foundational part of the work of the language of creation templates. So it's a both and, it's not a either or. And one aspect of the both and, like the college students that are making sure that the food banks have the food from the farmers who don't want to throw all their product away. And it began to show me over and over and over again, just like in the etheric dream, the ether beings, they just repeated the dream over and over and over again until I could be there without reflecting on the contrast. In other words, I stopped contrasting that they carried no system of war or no system of memory of trauma or meanness or hate. I just started being there with that, with them. Figuring out how to come engage with human beings without terrifying them or without whatever they were up to. So this is a really big deal, what I'm saying. It's a really big deal, and it takes you paying attention. It isn't like we believe in one or the other. It's that they both exist in the same place at the same time. It's all a matter of getting our systems able for the other. It's all about being able for being the threads of the future, which is these people, human people from the future, were basically coming back. Because in a one soul species, and there is definitely the one soul species consciousness is definitely rising. I just put together a 7-month package, which I'm finishing up today, for 7 months of work, because it can happen now. Because there is the one soul of humanity is rising again, that we're a one soul species. So it's not bizarre for our ancestors to communicate with us, or for our future, who we're the ancestors are of, our future lines of creation, to communicate with us, because our common language is our soul consciousness. The one soul, the never-ending, never dying one soul species called human being. So over and over and over again in the dream, they just kept showing me how, like, Vicky's making rice for my dog, and then I went to Sarah's, and Kaya was there last night, and Kaya had bought a head for the shower that carried these crystal properties, and so I got to take a bath and soak in that water and be in that shower. But it was all, they went back and reflected on it, and then I sat, and Kay and I worked out her landscape, her territory of consciousness within which new realities are rising, and it showed, they kept bringing me back to all these things I'd heard on the news, and like it's recording in the annals of future. It's not that what is being recorded. You know how when you go to listen to music, you have your favorite music station, or you do Shazam and you record your favorite songs. What they were showing us, their songs that we're sending out to them in the future, and that they're only listening for those songs in the now. One of the things we're doing the next 7 months, starting in June, is Timeless Time, and some of you had done Timeless Time, and kind of the, what do you call it? Like in TV where you run a few shows to see how the audience likes it. Can't think what it's called. But the hi Deanna. But the point was that they were picking up these songs that were threading the future. That were threading into the future. It was showing how it tracked out into the future, how it laid new pathways out into the future. And that there would be a time where it it all makes so much sense. Not that we know how to do it now because we're gluttonous and we shop till we drop and we have more than we need and we don't think that we can live without it. But truthfully, I mean, going back to the Wild West, which where I live was part of, in the Wild West, everybody pitched in, everybody made sure everybody had clothes and food and whiskey and whatever they needed. And for a long time here, there wasn't the exchange of money. There was the exchange of time and the exchange of needs being met. And that was the future I was shown. But what was exciting about it, and what I know the dream will come back, I know, and there was also knowing there was going to be Facebook Live today in the collective consciousness of which we're all a part, that doesn't have a linear paradigm. It only has a now. Also knowing I was going to be on this call and to, I think, as near as I can say it, awaken a part of our brain, awaken a part of our perceptive reality. You know how we do things in order to, like we diet in order to lose weight, or we're kind because we think if we buys us a seat in heaven. Sometimes we're just kind, but you know what I'm saying. Well, this is different. This isn't like buying a seat in heaven. It isn't like doing something in order to. It is, we are already doing it. That's what they were showing us. And they showed me through the, and that shower head that I used last night. The shower head is basically the return to the self. It's like a crystalline energy made with different crystals. And oh my goodness, how do I get all this information out in such a short period of time? But anyway, that shower head actually supported my system to actually, because your system is nothing but a recording device. Yeah, your cellular system is a recording device, and it can record anything. If you watch What the Bleep, it can record and store the sounds and like your Shazam can be, oh, woe is me, the trauma of the world, oh my God, we're all going to hell, and this will never be over, and the dark forces will win. Or your tracks can have another song, which is, oh my goodness, look at that. These children have no idea that in making sure that the food banks get food, that they're imprinting the field of human consciousness, and that it's setting a precedent for as if money does fail. I'm not saying that was the prediction, but if over time money does cease to be a commodity, they said we'll be okay. And I actually know where I live, that could be true. That could actually be true. You know, that we have a beef here, and there's animals here, and there's food here, and it could happen. But it showed the beauty of a society, of a world society, where there were these communities that gathered together with skill sets that they either had or they chose. Like, do you know that everybody, if you go look up the Temple of Humankind in Damanhur, Italy, none of the people that dug out that temple and did that beautiful artwork started as an artist. None of them started as electrical engineers. None of them started as architects. It was just there to be done. It was just there to be done. Listen to me. We are imprinting the future. And they weren't telling us to be different. They were saying we were doing it. They were very clear. And I believed them. So, I have a suggestion. Because we don't know how it'll work out. Some of us live in big cities. Some of us don't have access to water. In New Mexico, a state in the United States, if groceries didn't come in from outside, they would literally have no food within 4 days if nothing came in from outside. But you know what? In this reality I was shown that we're building the templates of its future in our now. People would, of course, truck food to the people of New Mexico because they knew they couldn't make food themselves. And because what would be the exchange be? Imagine, it was one of the things that was shown. I mean, I'm on the verge of tears because I was actually shown the future. So this, and then I said, because I was kind of having a dialogue, well, where do they get the oil and where do they get the gas? But it wasn't run by oil and gas, this truck. It was run by hydrogen and made from the sun and made from water. And these trucks were going to New Mexico, bringing food from from California, where food could be grown. Why? Because then they were saying, do this without crying. Because after they delivered the food, then the Indians took them out to the sacred grounds of their ancestors. And some of them were young people, a couple were women and regular old truck drivers. But then the Indians came and took the food and helped the people understand the land. And then they took them out to the beauties of New Mexico. So can you imagine a bunch of truck drivers taking time to unload their food, help it get in the warehouse? They made a gigantic feast where people came from all over. And then everybody divvied up everything and took it back to where they were. And then the truck drivers didn't rush back. They went out and watched the sunset at Bandelier and walked the sacred land with the Indians and were so happy. Exchange. And in that part of the vision, dream, visitation, it was exchange of time and energy, both delivering food and going out to be with the land. And at one point, it was so complex. There were so many things happening. It was like watching a multiple TV screen, only I was there in all those places. But then then you were watching how, for them, the exchange was being able to be on the land because they had come from a city. Being able to listen to the stories of the Taos Indian tribe. Being able to watch a sunset and see the vista and laugh. No ozone, no toxicity in the sky. That was one of them. I mean, there were so many of them, and some of them tap back into my life. And like the lady here, because Lily has trouble with her bowels, so I cook very special food. It's a lot of money, chicken breasts and hamburger for her pills. Only the chicken broth I give to a lady here, Bonnie, and to Vicky and Sam sometimes, because the broth doesn't work for her and it's too much for me. Well, they showed that, and how that's just exchange. That money's not needed. Money will not be needed. And it was showing how the people in Italy were clapping. I mean, do you remember in Contact, or E.T., where the radio waves went out and then something responded to the radio waves and came back in? And do you remember in Contact how the first radio contact was Hitler, unfortunately? But this is us. And this is why I did the spirals of beings for 6 years. That's why I'm doing the next 7 months. as our coherency is feeding out into the ethers of creation. And the time is not in the future random. It is in the now stably. And it's just showing, just like I watched the story of Mark Twain last night, live, his life, and how those people from our past, and then one of the God Matrix people this morning sent me a story of her grandmother. And this is all evidence. I don't know how to do it better than that. They wanted to give me evidence about how these simple things we're doing. Then Bonnie brought me my mail and put it in my brown box outside, and Vicky put the rice in the brown box, and none of that. It just showed me how money is actually not needed, and that yes, we might not be able to get anchovies from Spain, but we might. We may not live with so much luxury as we think it's luxury. But which is the better commodity? That's the question. Which is the better commodity? The exchange of taking care of each other's needs because we care about each other and because human life matters? Or having pretty things made in China with no connection to humanity at all? And I just created a contrast, and I apologize for that, because it wasn't in the dream. There was nothing but enthusiasm in this visitation. There was that something was already set in play, and that over time, more and more our lives would accommodate that we'd get used to exchange. But we can't think it because we've never done it. We can't do it because we don't know how it's done. But the visitation was to tell us we're being it. And that beingness is starting threads that will go out in time. Not too far either. And also, it never mentioned that money would collapse or that money would go away, which I know is a fear for a lot of people and controls us. It was just showing that it wasn't needed. That human beings always find a way. That there are human beings that do seek to secure their own well-being and then be there for others. And that we will find a way, because we do. I was shown the future, and we did. What we did know is imprinted in a future that is coming back to let us know and to tell us thank you. And then I just want to try the thing I kept practicing. Remember how when I was in the dream or the event with the etheric beings, and I just practiced trying to have periods of time that I didn't think about what could go wrong or what could be wrong or how I might be harmed. That I could take a moment in time, like this happened to me when I had that, this whole sacred space for rest and courage started because of the God that took me, the God, that I stepped into a territory, a dimensional territory, and he showed me these times, and he asked me to tell you to not be afraid. That all started. This whole sacred space for rest and courage started then. But it did happen. Do you understand? Within 6 months after that, I spent time with that being in that dimensional space. I didn't have the same emotions anymore. I had more beautiful emotions that love life and love people, and because that dimension gave me access to that. And then the dimensional landscape of those beings that they didn't know I had a trace memory of hatred, in people's actions and being mean and carrying guns at capitals and threatening others' health and welfare. They didn't relate to me that way. They related to me as if I was part of an equation that was helping, a token human, I called myself, a token human, so they could see how to come into this territory with human beings and not harm them and yet have a place. Everything's part of everything else. Everything operates on behalf of everything else in realities of unity. And yet everything can have a place. And now this visitation of these beings, chuckling, laughing, showing us a future that we're already threading in our exchange. You know, I think that Vicky and Sammy, that there's something for them that is lovely having me around and Lily around, and that they have the time, and it's not a hardship. It's not charity. It's an exchange of caring. It's an exchange. And maybe I feed their soul and they feed my dog. But it's not like tit for tat, or I scratch my back, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. But it could be you scratch my back, I scratch yours, because we love scratching each other's back. Not because we're fearful that we won't get what we need. And the dream went on and on and on. And those, I lost most of the memory of it a few minutes after I came out of it. But the New Mexico truck drivers and the hydrogen solar-powered trucks, and then taking a week off after the food was delivered to kind of like have a gigantic festival before they went back, and I mean, like time off, because the goods had been delivered, and we wouldn't need to deliver the goods for a while. I could feel it. The best of my ability in this conversation, because they came specifically for this conversation. I just want us to imagine a time. We've experienced it. You know, being sheltered in place for a lot of us has been just beautiful. Time to be. And these were showing us that those of us that have been finding it beautiful are literally imprinting the future through finding all those things you see on TV about, you know, people finding ways to be there with other people, taking care of each other through the limited access we have to each other. No wonder in the midst of taking care of ourselves and all this, there's a joy. And there's a joy, and we didn't have to experience it that way. A lot of people haven't. Shouldn't have contrasted. I apologize again. Because there's no need for contrast. There's only the desire to make room within yourself for new ways of being that deal in being connected to others and to life and to ourselves. It's just amazing. And they wouldn't let up. That's the last thing I want to say. They wouldn't let up. They were determined I got it. They were determined I told you. And how you know, for those of you that are dreamers, how you know is because they wouldn't, when I woke up, they woke up when I wouldn't, in a way so I wouldn't forget. Like the dream stayed with me the whole time I walked Lily and made her food. It doesn't, you can't forget. It won't let you pop out. And they were just determined to let us know it's okay. It's already happening. We've done it. We've already threaded the future. And it's what this God was talking to me about in the 1990s. It's what he was telling me. There's no reason to be afraid. And then right at the end of the dream, yes, I agree, Anne. Yeah, I agree. That I am missing so many words in this transmission. Because first of all, English is such a lack-based language. But it never occurred to me that why he asked us not to be afraid, that don't get involved in stories that aren't yours, that aren't about what you want the future to be, not only for yourself but for others. Just be involved in what you want the future to be, in whatever manner you have available to you. But that the future is already here, and we are living it within the now of a dying past and a dying present. And that's the truth. And so some of the things like what Anne is saying is, imagine that we have only thought as individuals for a very long time. Especially in the States, we're very individuated. Maybe everywhere. But imagine that it would be natural to meet at Briar Patch. That's like our community co-op grocery store, restaurant place, food place. Imagine we were sitting down with each other and saying, "Oh, I heard that they're gathering the food to go to New Mexico, and because we have all the time in the world, because we're taking care of needs being met, because that's what we do. It's not unusual. It's not strange. We go. A bunch of us go. Oh God, I'm gonna head over. I call Vicky and Sam and I say, "Hey, can you watch Lily? I got to cross the mountain. She can't go over 5,000 feet." Sure. Yes, that's her second home. And then you pop in the truck and ask what you can do. And the guy says, and I just want to drive and enjoy the sunset. How about if you check on the food that we're taking over? Make sure it stays cool. And you say, okay. And then on the way, we made sure that we don't have to race to get there. That we can go Route 80 and come down, or we can go Route 40. And along the way, we may have heard that we need to stop in on Thursday on our way to New Mexico for a quilting party, where the experts are showing us idiots like me, how we can help finish up and how we can stack them. That was the world they were showing me. And it was a totally different way of doing. It was participation and exchange. For fun. For joy. And it went over and over again. What it was doing was tracing new neural pathways in my mind. And I'm not advertising, but I want to talk about the next 7 months. Because as a psychic and a seer, I wish I could show you my dog. My dog sheds, and you can actually pull it out like a handful. And so the right-hand side of me looks like a hair bank. And because I keep playing with her and rubbing her, and then I notice my hand is nothing but full of hair when I pull it off. But imagine that one of the things that has happened in this time that we've been together is something stepped out of time. A devolutionary-based timeline is simply devolving. It just isn't operating on behalf of life. And things that don't operate on behalf of life erode, dismantle, and disintegrate. But do you know that human love is permanent? No matter what happens, There's always going to be human beings that care and love. I just want to talk forever. I just want to get this across. But when I scheduled these next 7 months for these 3 Saturdays, what happened this morning, Brazio a tutos. Woohoo! I'm learning. I'm practicing. Testo di meditazione. Preghiera. Prayer. Italian. Oh my God, you guys are going to make me cry now. We have Italy, we have Bulgaria. I know I'm going to cry. That was in there. Elvira, that was in there. Thank you for popping up. Because the other one was, because I would go into questions. Okay, let me see if I can do this. I would go, so I was quizzing them basically, because I had to come back and talk to you all, and I had to have the data. So one of the things I said, Elvira, I said, well, how do we, but what about Europe and America, and how do we, like I just wanted them to give me vignettes, just clips, because I knew I couldn't comprehend the whole thing. But yesterday, last night when I was watching the story of Mark Twain's life, do you know that people used to take freighters, and for 5 months they traveled across the sea and across Europe? They took 5 months. We can't even imagine that now. So one of the other vignettes was that people that like to travel back and forth between Europe and the Americas, both ways, whether it's Japan and over or Europe and over, it showed how these freighters would cross and everybody would fish, and they would, but it was all fun. And that so people that wanted to travel to Europe would fish for the boat, would haul in fish for the boat, and the fishermen would show them how. And this is what the God showed me. I think it's on this page somewhere. Jackie will have to tell you where the vision is. I think the vision's somewhere on this page. We'll have to hook it at the top of the page or something, because that's what the God showed me. And he showed how it was tragic, but it showed how the city of New York had fallen, but that the homeless were showing the Jewish ladies in their fur coats and their high heels, how to forage. And the whole vision this God gave me about what's going on now is not our business. We're the business of being the way we want to be is our business right now. Can somebody, while we're doing this, put the time up for me? Because I know I can't keep you on here forever. Except today I'd like to keep you on forever, so there we are. But it kept showing me these vignettes. And it was all beautiful. Like, it wasn't like idle time, but it wasn't like work either. It was like this freighter where in the freighter part, thank you, honey. So I got 10 minutes. So in the freighter part, what happened was that how do I do this? So in the freighter part, one half of the freighter was like a big airline. Thank you, I got it. And I can't believe that. I feel like I've been talking for 2 hours. So in the freighter part, it was like one of those big luxury liners. Only part of it had been converted to hauling fish in. And so then we would go for the day, and whoever that we were, and we were hauling fish in. This visitation lasted, thank you, Jackie, this visitation lasted a long time. And then, oh my God, then we go back to our boardrooms, but our boardrooms were not like normal. They were, like people that wanted to bunk together, like they bunked together. People like me in this case, I was like, had this big meditazione room. What is it? Room stanza, is that right? Or did I just say slow or sick? I'll get it. Camera. Mezione camera. The camera is room. So, but mine was a big meditation room, but others were like bunk beds, and some of the walls have been torn out of the little staterooms so that there were projects going on. But the coolest part was everybody came out to watch the sunset after smelling like fish and washing up. Everybody came out to watch the sunset. And then the ballroom opened, and we danced. While taking the fish to Europe. And bringing the fish from Japan. That was the other one. And then in the one in Japan, the one coming back from Japan, it was so different. It was like meditative, and there were these geishas that were... it's very hard to put in word terms we understand, that were showing us how to be like their stateliness and their way they put them, and how everything, like the tea party, is all very exact. And it just went on. It just never stopped, ever. And one of the other little sidebars was that, so I'm my Shifu, my Tai Chi teacher, she has a place in Costa Rica, and I have an RV. And so one of the dreams is to drive my RV to Costa Rica, drive from here, California, through Mexico and down into Costa Rica. And this was kind of the latter part of the dream. This was the dream visitation vision. This was sort of the latter part of it. But I'm afraid, but I know to do it. Everything in me knows to do this. And then if a bunch of us, if a caravan down, that's safer, obviously. But right at the end of the dream, right at the end of the dream visitation, vision, meant to come to you to thank you. This was a thank you. This is a thank you that those of us that are finding ourselves treasuring life, finding ways to take care of ourselves and each other, enjoying watching how people are taking care of each other. It's reinstating something that they wanted to let us know, that who we've been being is a ripple effect into the future that is profound. And I was given this vision in the 1990s. I had two beings I call gods, but please don't go religious on me. They were definitely higher intelligences than us. Told me about these times, and to see them actually happening. It isn't like we aren't impacted by the stories and we aren't scared. It's just there's something else too. There's something else going on. There's something called the future in the now. And I'm so looking forward to these next 7 months with this amazing group of people. Because their job is just to anchor it, to give it more threads. Just like those kids, making sure the food banks get the foods so the farmers don't have to dump it on the ground. Just like Vicky and Sammy making my rice. Whatever that is, it isn't by our way to heaven. It's be heaven on earth. And don't go religious on me. To practice paradise wherever you can find it. Because maybe that's our story. Maybe we're the crystalline grids of the future's calling. And maybe these group of our soul consciousness, read the Celestine Prophecy, the 10th Insight, you'll get the context. And maybe our soul group sent us this dream to me, because I'm receptive, I'm a mystic and a seer, and that makes me a prophetess, and that makes me susceptible to these things. But then it's no good if I don't bring it to you. It's no good if I can't bring it to you. But right at the end was the most beautiful part, and I almost did it, but my printer's not working. Right at the end, they show, like an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, and it said 4 things. It said, may be fearful, always faithful. May be fearful, always faithful. It was like the message they left about us now. That maybe this would be fearful, what we're going through, but that we were always faithful. And it was their thank you for that. And I'm excited personally because all those vignettes of which I've only been able to share a few. And you know how dreams are. You think you've been gone 10 hours and you've been gone 5 minutes. But I thought about what they said at the end. Like letting us know that this is fearful. I've really had to look because I'm psychic and it's hard on me. And I do a lot of research. My doctor is part of the pandemic board for California and the United States. I get first-hand information on purpose. I just happen to have clients and doctors and people in my life that are at the front lines of things. So I get really right on the front line information a lot. And I know that there's a 100% chance in the United States of America will be foolish. And it will have a cost. And so I had to think it this way. I had to practice. Carl Jung taught, if you want to read about it, it's a good, I'm sure you can find it in one of his documents. It talks about the healthy ego. And part of the power of a healthy ego is to have healthy fear. To not fear fear. And that's why I don't like it. When the kind of new age, don't fear, only love. Well, Jesus Christ, you be all lovey-dovey and walk in front of a bus. Not going to work out well. But I had to think this through because everybody's getting feisty and the young people don't really want to wear masks to protect the old people. In fact, a lot of people kind of be okay if we died off. But I'm not okay about it. But I'm not mad at anybody. I could see that. If I was a kid, I might have the same thing. I didn't even like it when my parents told me I had to stay in the afternoon or dress for Sunday dinner. So I have been practicing with myself about who I'm going to be over the next 4 months. And I'm going to wear a mask. But the why matters. And I'm probably going to be embarrassed. And I'm, sorry, my dog just popped. Laid back down in the bed. And I'm probably going to be embarrassed, and I'm probably going to feel odd. But the craving exercise number 3 and 4 is craving what blank is for me is, or craving what being blank is for me. But my mask has given me a gift I don't want to take away. It's let me cherish life again, my own and others. So wearing a mask is for me is cherishing life. Not fear of disease. Except that too. I fear the foolishness I know is going to go on for the next 4 months till the winter, as it stands now. But the virus could actually die off on its own too. We don't know.
but that I don't want to
be foolish
with my life. I want to live. And I'm willing to invest in that, my own embarrassment. And yes, because I practice healthy fear. I practice healthy fear.
May be fearful,
always faithful. I want you to be with your fear in a healthy way. I want you to know that social human existence is a gigantic pressure on every human being. And in the United States of America, there's a tremendous amount there is a group of human beings and conversations that are making people who wear masks feel like they're stupid or that they're chickens. I mean, there's even one conversation in my area about because we wear masks, we can't build our immunity because we're not connecting to each other. But let me tell you, I've been around human beings a long time, and mostly human beings aren't connecting to each other. They're just scared of being alone. And I'm telling them the truth. And I've connected more with people with that mask on, feeling their respect, feeling their concern, than I ever have in a grocery store without it. So I'm not telling you what to do because I don't know.
I just know for sure that
In the United States of America and a lot of places, the foolishness is going to be very, very costly. I don't want to be
one of the foolish ones,
or at the effect of that.
And I'm not mad either.
Because it's been a long time since human beings could actually take decisive actions to show how much they cared about each other. Collectively. Not just in our own little sect. So this is new to human beings. Just caring about each other publicly. Respecting life publicly. It's new. But what this visitation dream showed me, what they showed me is that we have broken through as a humanity. There are
loads of ads on TV.
Loads of conversations on the newspaper. Loads of conversations on the radio. That are simply saying, take care of yourself. Take care of each other. Respect life. Beautiful little vignettes of caring.
And it broke everything
through to the other side.
It was a quantum.
And the effect of that quantum showed up in my dreams this morning. And I thank you from the future. It flowed out and started new threads. And I know it's a prediction, maybe not in our lifetime, that money will not be the currency in the future. That exchange and time will be the currency. Promise. I've had 11 visions in my lifetime about this lifetime. This is actually the first vision I've ever had, or visitation, because I've had 1, 2, 3, now 4 visitations in my lifetime. 5, if I count the one when I was 5 years old, which was a blur. This is the first one about the future, or the future came back. So practice healthy fear. Get strong in your public embarrassment about anything you feel you might be embarrassed about. Please be careful. If you're paranoid about something, be paranoid about it. You have instincts that protect you. They aren't saying people are good or bad or right or wrong, but they will tell you. I'll tell you one example. I was walking to Target to get my pills, get my thyroid, and this man was coming up without a mask, heavy-set man, and I had my mask on, and it just felt uncomfortable. So without anybody noticing, I just stepped about 12 feet away from him on the other side. I let him go through, was going to let him go through the door first. And I stepped away from him and went around like where they were pushing in the carts. Like I was going to say hello to the person. But I just trusted it. I just did it. And right as the young person was getting ready to put the carts through the door, it's like this door you open up and put the carts through, he was going through the door beside. He leaned over and coughed and coughed and coughed. And I just stood there. And I just let everybody go through besides me. I am going to tell the story. I'm going to tell the whole story. Because I am going to tell the story. Because if you get something good out of it, it'll be great. And if you think I'm just, talking up my arse, as they say, you can think that too. But I'll tell the whole story. So, because that day I'd been very nervous and very fearful. And I'm not normal. But I practice healthy fear. I practice healthy paranoia. I listen to myself, and then I modulate what I'm willing to do and not willing to do in the face of it. Because during these times ahead, we are getting news and reports, and we're being told stories from so many different places that our own instincts need to be our best master. So I waited because I did the work. Basically, a cough lasts in the air for 6 minutes. It can last longer. And so I walked through holding my breath, and I got to the other side, and I stopped because I'd lost my keys there, and I called twice. I couldn't find them. It's a big red puffball on my keys, and so he walked, and he was ahead in front of me. And then I stopped, and they did have my keys. And then I went over to get my thyroid, and I was in line. But he was 6 people in front of me, and he was going to get medicine. And then there was a woman in front of me, and I had just been listening to one of my doctors who's giving us the latest information, the Chari Center. And I had heard about the kids and how they were getting sick and what the symptoms were, and how parents needed to watch for those symptoms, and if these symptoms showed, that they probably should get hold of their vet to be I'm not their vet, sorry, their doctor, just to be sure, just to be on the safe side. And so as I stood there, the woman in front of me went up, and she started talking about her son, who had all the symptoms that I had heard about the day before. And one of the people bottling the pills in the pharmacy said, "Oh no, there's nothing to worry about. He'll be fine." He said, that rash and that fever and that cough, that's just what's going around now with allergies. And the guy that had been coughing, that was getting his medicine next to her, said, "Oh yeah. My daughter, my stepdaughter has allergic to caterpillars." And I'm standing there in shock, mostly that the pharmacy person was saying what she was saying. And I stood there and I went, it won't make any difference for me to say anything. It won't make any difference. I have no voice in this. I am no authority. So I got my medicine. When I came out, I texted one of my 2 doctors. 3 doctors, actually. Anne, and I told her, and then she called me, and I told her what happened. And she said, "You should call the pharmacy and just tell him that you're concerned, and let him handle it." So I did. And I was very kind. And I said, "I'm really embarrassed to do this. I said, but I'm concerned. And I told him what happened. I said, my main concern is that, one of the pharmacy people told this woman she didn't need to worry about her son. And I was worried about her son because of what I'd heard. And it was all the symptoms. They had said, please call your doctor to check. And he was so beautiful. He thanked me. And he said, I really appreciate this call. I'm so glad you called. And so I told her, I said, would you be willing to call the woman? Do you think that would be appropriate? And he said, we'll make sure we find her and call her. Because I told her my name and told her she was right in front of me and that the woman should remember who she was talking to, and she seemed to know her. He said, not only will we call her and make sure that she calls her doctor, but I will make sure my staff never does that again. It was totally inappropriate. And I got off the phone and I was crying. And I said, dear God, please always let me be in the right place at the right time. On behalf of others, on behalf of all life, and on behalf of myself. Please let me always be in the right place at the right time. Because psychically, I think I was in the right place at the right time. And I know it's hard. It's hard to know if you're just opinionated or triggered, or it's hard. It's hard right now to know what the right and wrong thing to do is for yourself. And it's hard watching foolishness that could be costly because you don't want somebody to lose their lives. But it is our times. It is our times. And we have 4 or 5 months before we're really going to know how it's going to go here in the States. And remember, it takes 2 weeks to a month before we see the effect of our social behavior. So how about in the meantime? In the meantime, we need to celebrate a future. And in celebrating that future, we should connect it to our actions in our now. That we're operating on behalf of a future that's worthy of life and worthy of humankind. I probably went over a little. Thank you. Thank you for your life. Thank you for being here today. Because I was so excited that they came specifically because they knew that I was going to be talking to you today. Practice paradise, okay? And sometimes paradise is making sure that paradise happens. Namaste.